Let's talk about the trolley problem. In 1967, a philosopher named Philippa Foot published an essay which started a conversation that, well, you're entering as well if you're thinking about what is now called the trolley problem. And a second paper to read made it more famous. Now, what we're talking about here is not just one scenario where there's this trolley coming and you have to decide what to do and it's not quite clear. What's really happening here is that there's a series of questions that you think after you've done all that long, hard thinking, you have the answer, but then you get asked a separate question, and then we realize that your answer to the first question is totally inconsistent. So, what I'm going to do first is just give you the questions, and then I'm going to give you the scenarios, including the most popular one called the trolley problem. But again, there's a series of questions. So, here we're asking questions like, what's the difference between directly causing somebody's death and then indirectly causing somebody's death? Like, let's say that there's a person who's drowning in a pool and you're standing right next to her and you're watching her drown, but you don't jump in and save her life. You didn't directly cause her death. You didn't push her in the pool, for example. You didn't hold her head under the water, for example. But it seems like you are indirectly causing her death since you could have saved her, but you didn't. I don't know. Is that the way we should think about things? So there's that question. What's the difference between a direct cause and an indirect cause? And here we're talking about the trolley problem. So we're talking about killing and letting die, deaths. And then there's this totally separate question that we might be investigating, which is what's the difference between an intentional act and an unintentional act? Like, for example, if you're trying to turn around to hear what the loud noise was and you accidentally bump somebody who then falls into the pool, well, that was an unintentional act. They are now in the pool because of you, but it was an unintentional action that you did, which was resulting in the person in the pool. But if you push someone in the pool, then you have intentionally caused them. What's the difference really between an intentional act and an unintentional act? Could you get in trouble for the things that you accidentally, non-intentionally do? Could you get in trouble for the things that you indirectly cause? And then there's these other questions like, what's the difference between action and inaction? Could you get in trouble for your inaction? If somebody's drowning in a pool and then you don't save them, then you didn't act, right? That's an inaction. But sometimes an inaction results in somebody's death. So could you be in trouble for what you don't do, or should you only be in trouble for what you do? Those are just some very, very basic background questions that come up when you're thinking about the trolley problem. But then there's these other questions as well. Do all lives matter? Do all human lives matter? Do they all matter equally? Like, for example, that stranger down the street, is their life equal to your mother's life, to you, from your perspective? But also from a more objective perspective, do all lives matter equally? Like the homeless person who chooses to be homeless, who doesn't want to work, who likes standing on the street corners asking for money, or the priest who doesn't want to go and get a job and contribute to society's economy, but then wants to live off of handouts. Okay, so these kinds of peoples compared to someone who is, say, the president of a country who's doing really great things nationwide, maybe globally wide, are those lives equal? Do the social roles change those things? Here are two equally important questions. Is the direct intention of an innocent person's death ever justified? And then once you're thinking about that, we can break that question down. If it's ever justified, when is it justified? Or why is it never justified? Or why is it always justified? So those are deeper questions that we can ask just when we're thinking about this one. And then killing someone versus letting die. Are they the same or are they equal? So if somebody's drowning in the pool and you don't save them, but you could, are you equally responsible as the person who literally pushed that person into the pool? One of them killed and the other let die. Are those equal things? And is there ever a scenario in which killing someone is the right thing to do, or in which letting someone die is the right thing to do? What scenario could you think of where the innocent person's death, either by killing or letting die, is the ethical thing, is the justified thing? So directly and intentionally letting someone die or killing them, when is that ever justified? So now here are our scenarios. So the first one is, imagine that you're a doctor and you've got 5 patients and each of them needs something to continue living. One of them needs a heart. One of them needs a kidney. One of them needs eyeballs. Whatever you think of. So you've got these 5 people and each one of them needs an organ. And then you've got this healthy person who has all 5 of those organs. Should you kill the one healthy patient that you have without causing them too much pain? I mean, just like put them to sleep and take their life, and then harvest their organs and use that one person to save 5 people. Should you kill the one to save the 5? You might be thinking, no, that's terrible. How could you kill one to save 5? Okay, so now you've got your answer to one of the questions. But now take what people call the trolley problem. There's a trolley going down some tracks, and you're on the trolley, and there's a lever, and you can change which tracks that it's going down. Now, the trolley is going to run over these 5 people. 5 people are going to die unless you do something. Now, if you pull the lever, you change the tracks that the trolley is going to run down, from this track where there's 5 people to this track where there's 1 person. So if you pull the lever, you are going to kill 1 person who is not otherwise going to die. And you'd save 5 people. So this is the trolley problem. And it's very similar to this one, the doctor. If you were a doctor, should you kill 1 person to save 5 people? Most people think, no, what? You can't just take people and kill them to save more people with that human life. That's totally wrong. But then most people say that you should pull the lever to kill 1 person to save those 5 people. Well, what we're realizing here is what is called the trolley problem. It's like you have this tough scenario, but once you finally get the answer, you feel pretty confident enough. Why would we let 5 people die? Why wouldn't we just kill 1? We'd have 4 more people alive, 4 more families, 4 more contributors to society. So, duh. But then you think to this one, and all of a sudden you don't want to do it. Well, what's the difference? What's the difference? It's not quite clear. Here's another scenario that is often compared to, so I'm just going to give you the 3 main ones. Trolley problem all over again, except this time, if you want to save the 5 people who are about to be run over, there's this fat man on a bridge, say. And what you have to do is take your hands and push the fat man. And when you push the fat man, he is going to be so fat that his weight and size stops the train, and then tram, trolley, and then you save 5 people's lives. What's the right thing to do? Now, most people say you should not push the fat man onto the tracks. You should not kill 1 person to save 5 people. But that answer doesn't make sense, given that you were willing to pull the lever to kill 1 to save the 5. So then the difficult thing here is to explain what's the difference between these 2 scenarios. In both of them, 1 person is killed so that 5 people can live. And when you compare it to the scenario of the doctor, 1 person is killed so that 5 people can live. So why don't our intuitions seem consistent throughout these cases? What are the differences? Well, you're thinking back now probably to this main question and to these questions. And then depending on how you answer these background philosophical questions, you're going to get your answers, but then it'll turn out that likely you have totally inconsistent answers. So you could turn to some theories. some normative theories in ethics. In deontology, there is an objective, absolute, universal rule that says do not kill innocent people. That would be very wrong. So in deontology, the right thing to do is to not pull the lever to change the tracks. The right thing to do is not push the fat man to save the 5 people. The right thing to do is not harvest the healthy person's organs. So deontology, if you're a deontologist, would tell you that it is better to let 5 people die than to kill 1 person. But maybe that's not your normative theory. Maybe you're not a deontologist and you don't like reading Immanuel Kant. Maybe you're a utilitarian. Most people are utilitarians, especially in democratic places, where they think that the consequences of an action matter a lot, and the right thing to do is whatever produces the best possible outcome, consequences for the greatest number of people involved. You're trying to increase pleasure and decrease pain and suffering for the greatest number. And so for utilitarian, it's very easy. Utilitarians think you should pull the lever, you should kill the 1 to save the 5. But do you think it's safe and ethical and right to harvest a person's organs who's perfectly healthy, to kill them and to save 5 people who need all of those? So maybe you don't think that's right. So you're trying to be ethical and do the fair, right, moral thing, but the trolley problem shows us it's not quite clear what is the right thing.